2018 onwards, 2018, 2019. So that's the reason it is 15 to 20%. The skincare range is around 7 to 8%, followed by herbal cosmetics at around 40%. Now, herbal cosmetics is also because you might have heard there was a big boom on Himalaya, Ayush, as well as Patanjali. That's the reason 17, 18, you would have a lot of growth specifically on the herbal cosmetic category. The market size today is around 2.2 billion rupees in India. It's a fastest growing market from any sort of comparison. India is an agricultural country, but even in from that sector, cosmetic grows faster than the agricultural sector. And the largest market in India. So India, we divide. Everybody knows India is divided into four zones. The Western India. So we should be happy to see that Western India contributes around 28% of the market share, followed by the fastest growing regions. Definitely East and Northeast India is the fastest growing region for cosmetics. Now, who dominates cosmetic market? Now, from a cosmetic market, the one which we have written, see, Unilever, Colgate, P&G, L'Oreal, Godrej, Dabur, Johnson's. These are the ones which you are currently using products. And there are others also. So almost around 48% or 49% of market is from other cosmetics. There are small players who are part of these market, and especially in rural area wherein the logistics team is not able to cater to the needs of say Unilever or Johnson's, then these local brands and local players play a very, very essential role. Unilever being the maximum contributor, almost around 5% of contribution in the entire cosmetic scenario. But that is also because Unilever, and when you talk about cosmetic, is also talking about personal care products or the household products. So that's also Unilever has a big chunk or a big portfolio, and hence it has almost around 25% of the market share. We'll move on to the next slide. Now, this is basically talking about what is the definition of cosmetic. I specifically, and I would say purposely, put definition as per the Drugs and Cosmetic Acts in India and as per the US FDA Act. What is the definition? Now, I'll read out this definition, and the reason why I put this, I'll talk. So the definition talks about, if you see as per the Drugs and Cosmetic Act in India, it talks about any means, any article intended to be rubbed, poured, sprinkled or sprayed or introduced into or otherwise applied to the human body or any part thereof for cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness or altering the appearance, and includes any article intended for the use of a component of cosmetics. So the Drugs and Cosmetic Act gives you a very well written definition. In fact, WHO is also referring to the DNC Act definition of India. Whereas if you see US, it says products intended to be applied to the human body for cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, and altering the appearance. Now, here is a caveat. So, US FDA does not have any registration requirement for cosmetics, and anything and everything can be a cosmetic in US. You can prepare a cosmetic formulation in a garage. You can do a testing on 20 volunteers, and you can launch the cosmetic product. Whereas in India, that's not possible. That's the reason and India is governed through this to the central FDA, so which talks about all these basic attributes in terms of cosmetics. So beautifying, promoting attractiveness, altering the appearance of the skin. When you talk about altering the appearance of the skin, it's only the physical barrier of the skin. It's not wherein we talk about the surgery altering experiences. That is not ever part of cosmetics. It is still a therapeutic range. Move on to the next slide. I'll spend some time out here because it talks about cosmetic science. And cosmetic science is something which is very dear to me. And I think we all scientists, we should imbibe on that. Now, cosmetic science is not a simple science. It's basically a multidisciplinary field which involves basic knowledge and a wide range of information from a number of different scientific fields or attributes. Like, for example, anatomy and physiology. We need to understand what are we trying to manufacture or what are we trying to do the end purpose. Say, for example, if I want a cleanser. Now, cleanser is a very broad category. Now, what do you mean by a cleanser? Now, cleanser can be, you can have a soap as a cleanser. You can have a hand wash as a cleanser. You can have a body wash as a cleanser. You can have a wipe, facial wipe, that is also serving as a cleanser. You can have a shampoo, which is also a cleanser. So cleanser is a basic overview. But when you talk about anatomy and physiology, during an R&D or a cosmetic science development, we need to understand what is the end benefit. What are you looking at? Say, suppose we are looking at a shampoo. Now, the shampoo, the cleansing efficacy is on the hair. So, just to give you some basic purpose in terms of the sciences, we need to also understand the anatomy of the human body. When I talk about a hair, the formula which I'll develop is has to be acidic, and it has to be acidic because your hair, if you're developing a formula which is alkaline enough, a shampoo or a surfactant in the shampoo will probably lead to hair damage or hair break, because your hair shaft has a pH of around 3.6. You need to have a balance of that pH. That's the reason we keep these shampoos. Almost all shampoos currently available in the market will have a pH which is acidic in the range of 4 to 5. Now let's go to a cleanser, which is a body cleanser. So today, most of us use body washes. What's the pH of your body skin? Your pH of the skin is around 5.5 to 6.5. So a body cleanser formulation will be developed to meet the pH of that particular requirement. That's the reason the anatomy and physiology plays a very important role. Then comes the chemistry. What is chemistry? Why is chemistry very important? I'm an organic chemist. Definitely, chemistry is something which is very dear to me. Everybody out here who's participating in this meeting, chemistry is something which is very dear, because nothing can be manufactured, nothing can be made if you're not very clear with respect to the chemistry. For I give you an example of a surfactant. The surfactant is a chemistry, right? It has a hydrophilic tail, it has a hydrophobic head, so it will create a mishell to remove the dirt. Similarly, when you are applying a lotion, what is a lotion? The lotion is used so that you get moisturized. It is required to bridge the occlurency barrier, and hence the lotion is required. So the chemistry plays a very important role in terms of what is the emulsifier, what is the thickener, what is the emolliency, what is the basic attributes from a viscosity increasing agent, from a buffer ingredient, what chemistry are you going to apply to be used in your cosmetic science. Then is the pharmacology, very important pharmacology, because whatever you develop should not cause dermal sensitization. It should not cause irritation to the skin. Otherwise, the consumers will not buy their product. Formulation technology, very essential, because I'll give you a very example, and in the next slides, I will also talk about the manufacturability. But formulation technology plays an important role, because cosmetic is not that you mix 4 or 5 components and just store it and you get a formula. No, the formulation technology is very essential, because when you need to add and why you need to add, that is very critical. Like for example, how a surfactant is added. Should you add water first and then the surfactant later, or should it be vice versa? Depends upon the chemistry of the surfactant, depends upon the chemistry of the thickener, and also the buffer. Should we use a salt to increase the viscosity? Should we use a thickener to increase the viscosity? This is the formulation technology which is very essential in terms of driving the cosmetic science. Current rules and regulations, for sure, rules and regulations is very important for in India perspective. In India, cosmetic is governed by the Bureau of Indian Standards. I think when I talk about BIS, probably very few people will connect or relate to what exactly is BIS, but I think everybody is aware what is ISI. So you have an ISI, which is Indian Standard Institute. Similarly, ISI is governed through Bureau of Indian Standards. Bureau of Indian Standards governs the cosmetic directions. They govern the formula attributes. They also govern the specification attributes, what needs to be met from a regulation perspective. And as I mentioned in the start of the lecture itself, that cosmetics in India is regulated. So you need to own a license for cosmetics. Like for example, if you have not seen, just take any cosmetic formula, see the back of the pack, and you will find a MFGLIC written. That means it is manufacturing license number. Whereas if you're using any cosmetics, imported cosmetics, if somebody of your friend is coming from US and you want to buy some Aveeno products or Neutrogena products from US, just go and see the back panel. It will not mention the manufacturing license number because in US it is not regulated. Then on the analytical sciences, as ma'am was introducing me in terms of the analytical sciences, very essential cosmetics. Whatever you put in the formula, it needs to be evaluated. You need to measure what is the purpose, concentration. Say, for example, if I'm adding a fragrance, what is the concentration of that fragrance? If I'm adding a preservative, what is the concentration of that preservative? Viscosity, pH, physical appearances. These are the analytical sciences. Microbiology, very, very essential. I talked about preservatives. Why a preservative is added? Because it will help in eliminating microorganisms. And cosmetics, any cosmetic beauty, you just see the back panel, you will find there are preservatives into it. Preservatives are added because cosmetics formulations are formulations which are open. It is an occlusive formula because you open and use it. So there, your formula is exposed to environmental pollution, and there can be environmental microorganisms which can probably penetrate into your cosmetic formula. But if you have a preservative, it will prevent for the microorganisms to grow. So that's why microbiology plays a very important role. Consumer needs, at the end of it, whatever formula you're trying to develop, why are you developing? You're developing a formula for the consumer. If a consumer, say for example, and just jokingly, if a consumer wants a hand cleanser and you're giving a consumer a body cleanser and saying that, sir, ये body cleanser है, आप hand cleanser भी use कर सकते हो, the consumer will probably not buy because his end need is only a hand wash. He will not take a body wash and use it for a hand wash. So that's the consumer needs or the attribute, the belief what a consumer wants. Say for example, a baby cosmetic and an adult cosmetic is completely different. If you have a child at home, you want a cosmetic which should be mild enough, which should have a very sweet or a very good fragrance so that the baby smells good. And you should have a cosmetic, say suppose if it is a surfactant, the surfactant which you're using should not sting the eyes of the baby. And that's the difference between an adult and a cosmetic, adult and a baby formula. That's what is the consumer need. And finally, marketing and business. So marketing science is also essential because what are you developing this and for which market are you developing? If you're developing a cosmetic, whether it will be having a strong presence in the north of India or a south of India, whether it will be a class of consumers will use it, you want to develop it for a masses category or you want to develop it for a classes category. So that is how the entire evolution of cosmetic science talks about. So that's pretty much on the science piece. I'll go to the next slide. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Manish. Hello, Manish. Next slide. Just a minute, sir. I think we lost
No
him.
problem. No problem. No problem. So I'll continue. Maybe by the time he will be able
I'm
to resolve
sending
it.
him a message meanwhile.
Yeah. So on the so we talked about cosmetic science, and the next slide which I was planning to share is on terms of the categorization of cosmetic. But on cosmetic science also, if you see there are some basic attributes. We talked about the anatomy, the physiology, the chemistry, the pharmacology, the formulation technology. Now on I missed to share something on the formulation technology, which I'll share in the next slides as well. But formulation technology is very, very essential because say suppose you're using a moisturizer. Now it is very hot out here in India, specifically in Mumbai. It's very, very hot. So you and you say that it's very hot and I'm perspiring and I'm at home because government is not allowing me to go outside, but I don't want to apply a lotion, right? Is it true? It's not true, because even at home, your skin is going to shed moisture. Your skin is going to shed moisture. That moisture is called as transepithelial water loss, and that transepithelial water loss is is the reason why you want to apply moisturizer. Now you will feel that moisturizer I should apply only when I'm doing say it's winter. I don't want to apply a moisturizer during summer. So in summer also you should apply a moisturizer, but the moisturizer should not have a very high fatty component into it, and hence the moisturizer plays a very important role. I think we are not able to move to the next slide.
Manish, this one is right, sir? Tripathi, sir?
Yes.
Here, Manish will.
Yeah, yeah. Good,
Thank you,
good.
Manish.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks, Manish. So on the broad categorization, again, this is a very, very heavy slide. I know most of you, if you're joining through mobile, very difficult to read. But why I wanted to share this, because this is what we are talking about: classification of cosmetics from a skin care, from a hair and scalp care, and from an oral perspective. On a skin care, we have skincare cosmetics like cleansers, conditioners. We have makeup cosmetics. You have your daily moisturizers, sunscreens, your lipsticks, your insect repellents, which are part of your body cosmetics, and then for the hair cosmetics, you have cleansing treatments, you have hair stylings, you have gels, you have hennas. That is all part of hair cosmetics. And on scalp care, you have on treatment mechanisms, you have the oils which we apply on the scalp, right? There are a lot of oil, like for example, parachute oil, navratna oil. These are all the therapeutic categories in terms of hair and scalp care. And in oral care, we have definitely toothpaste, mouthwashes, and at the end, fragrances of perfumes like deodorants, the rubs, or the scrubs, which is part of uh, the fragrance category. Moving on to the next slide. Yep. So the next slide, again, I don't want to share a lot on the cosmetics marketplace and how a cosmetic looks, because as I mentioned, everybody of you are using cosmetics today. But I just divided into different categories. How a cleanser is. So you have a body cleanser, you have a shampoo, you have a hand wash or a face wash. That is a cleanser. You have a body lotion and creams, and body and lotions and creams. You have creams for the body or lotions for the body. You have creams only for the hands and face. You have creams specifically for treatment at a particular duration. For example, you have morning creams, you have night creams. So Olay, for example, is a night cream. Then you have deodorants, which is used as an antiperspirant. Then you have mouthwashes, Listerine being a very it's the one of the biggest brand in India. And then you have perfumes. These are various marketplaces products. Next slide, we'll talk about basic compositions. Now, we talked about a lot in terms of the cosmetics, but let's see what are the compositions which are used in all these various categories. If it is a cleanser, so the classification or a composition of a cleanser definitely has to be more on a solvent base. What is a solvent is nothing but water. So in cosmetic, all the cosmetic except for perfumes or fragrances, the solvent is water. So you have in cleanser, you have the surfactant system, you have the thickener, you have skin conditioning agent. Why a skin conditioning agent is added is because you all know that when you add a surfactant, surfactant can be anything like a soap or a active surfactant or a detergent. It will strip away moisture, or it will strip away sebum as well from your skin. So just to replenish that sebum or to replenish that moisture, and sebum, I'm not talking purely from an oil perspective, I'm talking from the skin lipid or amino acids. If it strips that, a conditioner is basically added to balance that, so that a conditioner is the one which will help in balancing your skin attributes. Then you have the buffers, you have abrasives, you have various colors added into cleansers, fragrance, and at the end, preservatives. On skin moisturizers, almost the same. You have the surfactants or the emulsifiers, which will help in. So, what are emulsifiers used for? Emulsifiers are basically used to give an oil and water gel. So, you'll have an oil and water moisturizers, basically an oil and water emulsion. So, you have an humectant, emollients, occlusive agents. You have the skin rejuvenators, preservatives, fragrances, and colors. On mouthwashes, we have the solvent. In mouthwash, again, the solvent would be water, or it can also be an alcohol water solution. You have co-solvents. Co-solvents also like surfactants, which will help in solubilizing the active component in a mouthwash. The active components can be some active ingredients which has been added in the mouthwash because of say plaque removal or gingivitis treatment. Say for example, fluoride is added especially to treat the plaques. You have antimicrobial agents, you have preservatives, you have color, flavors, and sweeteners. For sure, if it is a mouthwash, you have to have sweeteners added. Now, sweetener in this case is not sugar; it is purely sorbitol or stevia, which is being used. Then you have deodorants, which also have solvents, co-solvents, propellants. What is a propellant does? A propellant is basically a gas. So you're using a deodorant; it needs to be applied in the gaseous space, and you also have an antimicrobial agent into it. And finally, we have soap. So everybody is using soap today. So today's world, even WHO and Indian government is telling that you should wash your hands from soap, because soap is alkaline. It will probably help give a good efficacy in removing germs. So what is the composition of soap? It majority of the soap has soap noodles. Almost around 95% of your formula would be soap noodles. You'll have opacifiers. Is basically used to give the color to the soap. It can be titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. You have colors, various color soap which is available. You have fragrances, skin conditioners also to be added in the soap, because soap is alkaline. It will strip away the lipids, so conditioners are added, and at the end it is also with preservatives. Moving on to the next slide, we'll talk about the cosmetic product development cycle. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. So the next slide talks about how a product development process takes place. So these are various steps in product development. So it is defined. The define phase is what is the product which you are defining for? What is the consumer benefit which is going to provide? Design is after the define, we come to the design phase. Here, people like me sitting in the R&D, we will develop a formula in the lab. So in the lab, we will develop the formula and it will be freeze, and we will do some sort of consumer studies on these formula. So I think many a times somebody of you might have definitely participated in some sort of cosmetic formula studies. So you either through virtual world, there is a lot of links which comes to you, and you just, or there are products which come to you, and you just use that product for a week or so and you give her feedback. So that's the design phase. In the development phase, so design happens after design is the development phase, wherein we finalize what would be the artwork. So the artwork is, say for example, what are you going to do? Are you going to go in a bottle? Are you going to go in a tube form? What is your product aperture which you want to go ahead with? And the process artwork is developed. Then is the safety evaluation. So once the formula is ready, we do a safety evaluation. Safety evaluation is in India, we need to select almost around 200 plus subjects and do a patch study, just to see whether the cosmetics is causing any dermal sensitization or erythema on the skin. Then you do the microbiology assessment of the formula ingredients. We do a microbiological assessment. So what is the microbiological assessment? We have added a preservative in the formula. So we actually inoculate microorganisms like E. coli, Staphylococcus aureus, or yeast and molds into the formula and see whether there is a kill efficacy generated. Followed by stability. Stability is as per ICH. So India regulation recommends that you do stability at accelerated, which is 40 degrees Celsius and 75% relative humidity conditions for almost around 6 months. And you also do a long-term stability, which is around 12 months at 30 degrees Celsius and 75% relative humidity on the formal packaging. Next comes is the scale up. So scale up is because whatever we were doing today was on the lab, right? In the lab, I would probably be able to prepare only say 2 kilograms or 5 kilogram, max 30 kilogram batch in the lab. But a cosmetic needs to be scaled up. You need to have uh, you need to have a lot of very essential attributes. So that's the reason the scale up becomes very important, because from the lab scale we go to the higher scale, or to the manufacturability scale, wherein from 30 kilograms it will go to 10 tons or 15 tons batch size, and then followed by validation. Validation is nothing, it's basically to check that time and again you are getting a consistent product. And finally is the launch. So launch is a full bloom launch. So cosmetic launch is something which we as an R&D people cherish a lot, because when we talk about launch, we try to rope in some celebrities coming, and then we talk the science with the celebrity, which they don't understand purely, but we want a brand face so that it reaches to the masses, and that's the final intent on the launch. I got a question, somebody asking that can you tell me what is the role of an antioxidant? So yes, the antioxidant is added because there is a lot of molecules or products which we have oxygen embedded into it, and when you have more oxygen, it can lead to peroxide increase, which can probably lead to foul smell in the formula. and I'm talking about purely from an cosmetic perspective. Or if you are using a herbal cosmetic, you will find that in the herbal cosmetic on the back panel it may be mentioned that uh, color and fragrance can change upon duration, because that's a herbal cosmetic. Whenever you use herbal cosmetics, the crop is different, and that's the reason it would probably lead to some sort of different formula development. But antioxidant is used basically to prevent any degradation which can happen over the course of the product being at the shelf. I also got a question talking about what exactly is TFM. So TFM is total fatty matter. It is essential in India, as well as not only in India, in mostly the soap category. So when you talk about TFM in India, the soap is divided into three categories: grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. So grade 1 is one which is having a very high TFM. That means it will have a very high fat content. You'll have a very good lather in that. And like, for example, your Lux soaps, your Johnson's Baby soap is having a very high TFM, almost around 78%. Then you have grade 2 soaps, which is uh, somewhere on the lower TFM, 72% TFM, which will not be having a lot of fatty acid. They'll be balancing it with, and again, grade 2 soap will be lower in cost, but it will not give you the same performance or the same benefit on cleansing. And then the grade 3 soap is like your Lifebuoy soap, the red one, which is a grade 3 soap. Let's move to the next slide, wherein I'll talk about manufacturing process and technology. So manufacturing process and technology, again, I'll spend some time out here, is now this is in the scale up process, and followed by this we'll show even how actual manufacturing happens and an actual filling happens. uh, in the scale up, there's a raw material dispensing. You get raw materials. I'm now talking about a batch as almost around 5 tons, 10 tons, or 15 tons. It's a huge batch which needs to be prepared. So the raw material dispensing happens is a very confined area, followed by product manufacturing. On a dedicated vessel, we do a product manufacturing basis the technology which is being developed. High temperature, low temperature technology, milling is happening, and then quality control in process checks. So quality control is also required, because when you do a batch, when you do a manufacturing of the product, you need to ensure the sanctity of the product by testing whether it is meeting the viscosity requirements, whether it is meeting the pH requirement. I'll give you a simple example. Suppose you're using Colgate in the morning, and as soon as you open the cap of Colgate, it comes out automatically, even if you're not pressing. That means the formula was not developed properly. That means the quality control team had not done the testing. But remember, we are talking about a batch size of almost around 5 tons, 15 tons. Very difficult to do the testing on the cosmetic as against the formulation product. And hence, there's a new technology which has been introduced, and I'm talking about PAT and RTR. Now, PAT is process analytical tools, and RTR is real time release. So we'll talk about process analytical tools and real-time technology when we move to the next. But this, just to share a glimpse of it is an online tool. It's an online tool wherein you don't have to physically withdraw samples and do the testing on viscosity and pH. Finally, you do a filling and you do a finished product testing. Can we move to the next slide to share the video? Yeah, so out here, if you can see, we are talking about how the cosmetic manufacturing site looks like. And I am showing, so this particular is a viscometer. So you might have seen Brookfield viscometer. This is a different viscometer. This is an Anton Par viscometer, which measures the viscosity of the formula in line. And it is used currently. That is the reason which is called as real time release. It helps in evaluating the real time release of that. And then this particular panel, now the next panel which we'll show, is this panel is called as HMI. Now HMI basically records what is the temperature of the vessel, at what is the volume of the product which is being derived, what is the viscosity, what is the pH. So this is an online thing. So in cosmetics, nothing is touched, everything is online in the current situation. And that's the reason this becomes very, very effective and understandability in terms of how the panel looks. And that's the reason I wanted to show this panel. So this is all a manufacturer. You can see if you see the green, the stainless steel vessels. These stainless steel vessels are all the manufacturing kettles. Can we move the next video, please, which shows the filling operations? Yeah, this is the filling operation for and especially girls will relate to this. It's a lipstick product, and how a filling operation happens for a lipstick. So you prepare a cake, and then the cake is rolled into a die, and then finally it is being filled. This is for lipstick, and then we also have for lip gels. I'll show the next. We'll show how the lip gels. This is a lip gel video, and this is how the lip gel is filled and packed. Move on to the next slide, please. So next slide, we talk about manufacturing technology. So manufacturing, this is just a pictorial representation of a kettle, how a kettle looks. The center is the shaft wherein the mixing happens. Then you have the homogenization. What basically homogenization does is, you can see there is a pump out there. So you, from the bottom, there is a pump which goes. This is homogenization. Basically what homogenization or followed by quadro milling, it does is, it breaks the cosmetic product or the raw material which you add into finer particles. Like for example, and why it is doing that, say suppose you are applying a moisturizer, and when you're applying a moisturizer, it should be uniform, right? It should be easily spreadable. But if you say that it is easily spreadable, for that spreadability, you need to have uniform particle size. So this homogenization or milling process will give you a uniform particle size. Then you have vacuum, because vacuum needs to be applied to remove all the air from the formula, because you're mixing at a very high speed. The speed sometimes ranges to around 2000 RPMs or more than that. And then recirculation. What is recirculation does is, recirculation basically puts the entire formula on a very, very homogeneous scale. Again, the kettle, though it looks like this, the kettle is around 10 KL, 10 kiloliters or 15 kiloliters. It's a very, very huge kettle. Move on to the next slide, wherein I'll talk about the finished product testing. Now, for the finished product testing attributes, I'm not sharing much on this because appearance plays a very important role. You have to define the appearance which is given to the Bureau of Indian Standard or to the regulators. You have to define the pH. You have to define or to test the viscosity. The preservative assay, if you're adding a preservative, say, suppose it is paraben, suppose it is sodium benzoate, benzoic acid, you need to do the testing. And at the end, you need to also do the microbiology testing. Let's move to the next now on the regulation piece. So regulation, so in India, the regulation is governed by the Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1940, followed by the Drugs and Cosmetic Rule 1945. So a Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1940 says that it's an act to regulate the import, manufacture, distribution, and sale of the drug and in cosmetics in India. And the primary objective of the act is to ensure that the drugs and cosmetics sold in India are safe. Remember, India talks about safety first. It's safe, effective, and conforms to the state quality standards. Again, why it says state quality standard? Because in India, the manufacturing license is given by the state. Say, suppose if you have a manufacturing unit based in Maharashtra, Maharashtra FDA will give you a manufacturing license. Similarly, if you have a manufacturing unit in Himachal, you'll have Himachal FDA sharing that. Next is the Cosmetic Rules 1945, wherein it sets rules of rules under Drugs and Cosmetic Acts, which gives you provision of classification of drugs under different schedules. And now, what is a schedule? And there is a lot of schedule in under cosmetics, the Drugs and Cosmetic Acts. Schedule, for example, how your manufacturing unit should look like, how your maintenance of workers should be there, how process mobilization should be. So there are multiple rules, and how labelings and artwork should be there. But I'll share only two rules which are very, very essential for us. Can you move to the next slide? So these two rules are very, very important for cosmetics India. Rule or schedule number M, which contains various regulation of manufacturing, premises, waste disposal, and equipment maintenance. So this schedule talks about how are you going to, what are the regulations for manufacturing, what are the regulations for maintaining the proper hygiene in the premises, waste disposal, how the pollution control board is taking care of the waste disposal, and the equipment sanitization. Next is the schedule S, which talks about various cosmetics and toiletries in terms of importer or manufacturability, wherein I talked about the Bureau of Indian Standard requirements, BIS requirements. Move on to the next slide, which talks about Indian regulation applicability. Can we move to the next slide? So here the cosmetic regulations, I've just given a skeletal representation in terms of how the cosmetic regulation is in India. So you have the Drugs and Cosmetic Acts and Rule, which governs the licensing, labeling, and GMPs. Then you have the Bureau of Indian Standards, which governs the raw material standards, which governs the product standards. You have the Legal and Metrology Act, which governs the product commodity, or that is how what needs to be written on the product and on what font, what attributes should be there. You have the Advertisement Standard Council of India. Again, this is a non-government body, but still part of regulations, which helps in defining the standards on promotion, product promotion. And then you have the environmental sustainability, which is plastic waste management and solid waste management being very, very essential. Can we move to the next slide, where I'll show the how a cosmetic product labeling looks like? Yeah, so on the cosmetic product labeling, so I have taken one example of a Johnson's product, which is Clean and Clear Oil-Free Moisturizer. Now, CNC, if you see Clean and Clear in the blue box, that's the brand name. The product name is Oil-Free Moisturizer. And if you go to Amazon, and this is why on e-commerce retailers, we normally have to explain them very clearly. It will call Clean and Clear Oil-Free Moisturizer. So this is the complete name which needs to be entitled in the e-commerce site. Then what are the claims? So I'm giving a front of the pack claim mentioning oil-free, won't clog won't clog pores, and moisturizers without greasiness and help prevent pimples. So that's the claim basis which the consumer, because that's the consumer facing, and we we in a cosmetic industry we called it front of pack, or the front panel, which is the display panel. So consumer basically buys that. Now let's see the other thing. It talks about price, where the price has to be there, what should be the manufacturing and the use before date, online coding. The product name should also be on the back of the pack. The product description should be there. Direction for use, the caution or the warning statement should be there. List of ingredients, very, very essential. And it's a mandatory requirement in India that you should have the list of ingredients, the INCI name to be printed. The generic category name is just for an understanding perspective, whether it is a body wash, hair wash, surfactant, it's a soap, cleanser, so it needs to be mentioned. You have the manufacturing license, and then the consumer care details, followed by marketed by, net quantity, and the manufactured by. Very important in terms of all these, because unless and until you fulfill these requirements on a labeling, you will not be able to fulfill the legal metrology requirement, and you will not be able to sell your product in India. Let's move to the next slide. I'm almost on the verge of completing my presentation. The next slide is talking about ASCI. Now, what is ASCI? ASCI is Advertisement Standard Council of India. So it is a code of self-regulation. Now, as I mentioned in the previous skeletal slide as well, that ASCI is part of the cosmetic regulation, but this is an independent body. Now, when we talk about independent bodies, because this is a body which is funded by cosmetic industry, not by the ministry, not by the government or the health authorities, because it talks about honest representation. That means it is talking about truthfulness and honest to the consumers as well as competitors. That means whatever advertisements you do, whether it is a TV advertisement, TV promotions, or it is a online advertisement. So today everybody is at home, right? We all are using Netflix and Amazon Primes and Woot and whatnot. You see advertisements out there as well. So that advertisement is different than the advertisement which is put on TV commercials. So whether it is honest and truthful, it should be against harmful products and situations. That means it should not indiscriminated to be a promotion of a product. That means we should not call out the hazards, or it should not be harmful to the society or to the individual. It should be non-offensive to public. Very important, any advertisement which we do, it should be non-offensive to the public as well as to the household or to the competitors. Otherwise, you will get a complaint from the ASCI society, and you'll have to take away that ad by paying a very heavy fine, and it should be fair to the competition. Why advertisement now? I want to spend some time, maybe a couple of minutes more on advertisement, because R&D and my role again in advertisement plays a very important, because so we all scientists and we understand science, but not the consumers are able to understand science. So for example, when I talk about the efficacy benefit of a moisturizer, that moisturizer helps in preventing transepithelial water loss, that is TWL, and I'll show a science behind that. And suppose I go ahead and share that science on a TV commercial. Will anybody understand that? No. It will be a futile exercise for me to just go and share the science on a TV commercial wherein nobody will understand and you will just skip the channel, right? I like to watch a lot of ads whenever I'm watching my TV. I like to watch ads rather than watching serials or because first of all, in TV commercials you are able to see celebrities for which you don't have to go and spend a lot of amount in the theaters. At the same time, we also get to see what the celebrity is promoting, right? Cosmetic is the brand promotion at the end. What celebrity we like, we would eventually go and buy that product, even if whatever the celebrity is saying makes no sense. But again, advertisement plays a very important role. And I'll just try to cherish your memory on advertisement. I talked about moisturizer, right? Vaseline, some time back, had created an advertisement wherein it was trying to share a stance on moisturizing, why moisturization is very essential. So they showed a lady in the advertisement wherein the lady applied a Vaseline body lotion and she laid down on a bed of leaves. And after a couple of time, when the lady got up, the entire posture where the lady was lying down, that was hydrated, whereas the other all leaves was dried. So this is the wow moment or the aha moment for an advertisement, right? We know what moisturizer does. It gives you that protective moisture benefit. But when you go and talk science to a normal consumer probably not be able to understand that. So how we embed science in an advertisement is also the role of an R&D person to walk through all these. So again, that's on advertisement. Lastly, can we move to the next slide? And this is the end of my slide. I'll take questions if you have anything. Is we talked about a lot on cosmetics and we talked about a lot on how it is manufactured, what are the regulations and all that. But who is keeping a watch on that? I can say that I have done everything in compliance to what the government of India regulation is, but somebody has to keep a watch on it. So there is something which is called as GMP, which is good manufacturing practices. Now, cosmetic good manufacturing practices will cover documentation. That means right from the defined stage to the launch stage, all the documentation should be kept in handy because there can be FDA auditors can land at your offices and start doing a scrutiny of your documentation or your records. Then you have buildings and facilities. So there is a schedule which we talked about. What should be the building height? What should be the maintenance and care of the building and the facility which you are taking care of, which is also embedded under good manufacturing practices. Personal, how many personals are working? What are the full-time employees, the contractors which are coming in and out? How are you maintaining the sanctity? How are you using waste disposal? What is the water treatment plant? How are you seeing that you are not having a detrimental effect on the environment? What is the raw material, water, color additives which are using? How is the production controlled from a good manufacturing process? Laboratories. So if you have a laboratory in-house, how are you controlling the laboratory practices? You in laboratory, for example, you use a lot of solvents, acetonitrile, we use chloroforms, we use acetones. How are you ensuring that these are completely waved out and these completely are treated? And then you have internal audits. Now these are GMP audits, which is done by local FDA, but the plant or the site, the company is also responsible to do internal audits, which is done by the quality assurance team or the regulatory team. And then at the end, there are some complaints or adverse events or recalls, which has also been part. Now, complaints and adverse event is also because you know all the back on the back of the panel there is a toll-free number as well as right to address mentioned in the email. So I don't know how many of you utilize that facility. If suppose you're using a cosmetic and you get some sort of maybe irritation or itchiness, or maybe the cosmetic product a batch to batch is not consistent. So today you get a product which is very high viscous, and tomorrow when you buy that product, maybe after a month, you found that the product is not having the same consistency. Then in that case, you can call and register your complaint. So all these registered complaints come to R&D, like people like me, and then we need to work with the consumer to resolve that and try to understand whether it is meeting the quality attributes. That is also part of the good manufacturing practices. That's overall on cosmetics, which I had to share. Can move to the next slide, wherein I can take questions, if any.
Hello.
Hello. Yep.
Tripathi sir. Yeah. So
Yeah,
shall
there
we
are
start
many
with?
questions.
Yeah, very many questions. Vijay sir, shall I take or you'll be taking?
Yeah, you take it, then I'll take the next one.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, everybody, sir. A very enlightening session. And there are like multiple questions. Can I start?
Yes.
Can
Yes.
you? Okay. The first question is what is the constituent difference in shampoos for long hair and silk shine hair or Andy dandruff? Or are they all same?
Very good question. Again, as I mentioned, this is a chemistry question, and I like to take chemistry questions. So yes, when you have a long hair, the shampoo, if you so even if you have a long hair or a short hair, the shampoo will remain the same. So there is no difference in terms of the shampoo. But when you're talking about you want a conditioning shampoo, so what is a conditioning shampoo? Here we talk about surfactants. So when you talk about surfactants, there are basically different category of surfactants. You have an anionic surfactant, cationic surfactant, amphoteric surfactant, and non-ionic surfactant. When you talk about conditioning and in a consumer language, not conditioning, when you talk about bounciness, so there's an advertisement, right? There's bounce which happens. That is a conditioning shampoo. In that conditioning shampoo, we add cationic surfactant. So a cationic surfactant ripples and it creates that conditioning effect or a volume effect, so your hair looks big. Whereas for a silkiness, if you talk about silkiness, the surfactant remains the same, but you have a silk conditioning agent, like for example, silk amino acids. So we use amino acids at a very a minuscule scale, I would say at a very contributing scale to it, so that it gives you that silkiness.
Okay,
Sir.
there is a next question. Can I
Yes.
go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Does sodium lauryl sulfate present in all leading brands of shampoos lead to disease such as cancer or neurotoxicity?
Again, a very good question, and I was expecting this question from someone for sure. So let's try to understand again the chemistry part of it. Sodium lauryl sulfate is different than sodium laureth sulfate. So people misconcept this. So when you talk about SLS, is different than SLES. The sodium laureth sulfate is a sulfate molecule which does not have the irritation potential because it is masked by an ethylene oxide molecule. There is a lot of study across the globe which talks about that sodium laureth sulfate, which is currently being used in cosmetics, does not cause cancer. And if you want to go and verify that, so there is an IARC guideline which is referenced by US FDA, wherein if you go to IARC, it's an open forum, and just add sodium laureth sulfate or SLES, you will find that there is no potential carcinogenic or mutagenic potential on SLES. But yes, there is a lot of NGOs across the globe which has come up because they don't understand SLS and SLES, and hence as an industry, so we cannot go back and share with everybody that SLS is different than SLES. So as an industry, we have come up that okay, let's eliminate SLES from the near future. Again, SLES does not cause any effect on a carcinogenic potential, but it has some effect on the environmental pollution. So hence cosmetics, but remember in cosmetics it goes at a very, very small scale. I'll give you a maximum concentration which SLES goes is only at around 6 to 7%.
Okay. So
Mridula, next question. Yeah, you go ahead.
Does a same product or formulation related to the similar product vary in properties or function according to a geographical location?
Again, a very good question. So when you talk about geographical locations, If it is India, then the answer is clearly no. India is a uniform country, and if you're manufacturing in India in Maharashtra, the same product will be available in Northeast, it will be available in Kashmir, it will be available in Tamil Nadu as well. But if you have a product and same product in some other market, say for example in Europe, then the product would be different. When I talk about different is the product chemistry will remain the same. The difference would be only in terms of consumer belief. I'll give you a classic example is, say suppose a deodorant. If you have a deodorant and let's take an example of PNG. So PNG has a lot of deodorants. And if you use a deodorant in India and the same deodorant, if you buy it from say Europe, say in from France, the same deodorant will have the same composition, only the fragrance will be different because the fragrance is driven by the consumer belief. So in India, if for example, we have a very high note for a fragrance. So the fragrance is divided into three parts: top note, middle note, and bottom note. So in India, we want that very high smelly product. It should smell. You're applying a deodorant because we perspire a lot. Whereas in France, they don't require a deodorant wherein you'll have very high perspiration. That's where deodorant with a very minuscule smell should be there. Same thing is applicable for surfactants as well as for other products as well. So the basic chemistry or the basic formulation remains the same. Only small attribute changes to meet the consumer need is changed.
Okay, good. There is one more question. Sir, can you give us any insight on Nutri-Cosmetics?
Yeah, very good question. So Nutri-Cosmetics it's a new branch of cosmetics which has come up. Now, what is Nutri-Cosmetics? And it's not that it was not there. It was there. All the therapeutic cosmetics have used Nutri-Cosmetics. Nutri-Cosmetics is like prebiotics, postbiotics, or also we have some cosmetics which is being derived considering the benefit of oats. Say for example, oats is a magic remedy today, and everybody is deriving from oats. So what does oat do? So oat provides you the prebiotic, and why you want the prebiotic? So what does a Nutri-Cosmetic means? It gives you nutrition to your skin, and cosmetic is purely for the skin or the hair. So when you talk about lipids, so oat provides you that additional lipid which is stripped away by the surfactant or the soap cleansing attribute. So Nutri-Cosmetics is something which talks about more from a benefit perspective and adding more nutritional. You can also have organisms like, for example, lactobacillus is added in some of the cosmetics. But again, all these cosmetics are categorized under therapeutic category, which is not sold on shelves. It has to be prescribed through a prescription only.
Sir, next questions are, what are the side effects of face washes?
So short answer, no side effects. So face wash would never have any side effects. Only thing remember, every skin is different. So every skin is different. The cosmetic, though, as I mentioned in the morphology study, we do a dermal sensitization study to confirm that the face washes used across most of them will not have any effect on erythema on the skin. But there may be some people whose skin are very, very sensitive. And when you apply face wash, your skin can become red or it can create some itchiness because your skin is sensitive. In such cases, it is recommended is to go to a dermatologist and ask the dermatologist what is the therapeutic cleanser or face wash which you should use.
Okay.
Okay, there is next question. It talks about paraben. Most of the companies, they are avoiding use of paraben. So should we concern on this paraben in the cosmetic use?
Good question, and I think I'll have a very simple answer to it. Regulation. Remember, all the cosmetics in India is regulated. We need to declare the ingredient listing, and whenever we talk about the ingredient listing, all the ingredients which we are adding has a known potential use as well as the concentration. So in India, we have a standard from Bureau of Indian Standard. The standard is called IS 4017. Okay, and this standard governs the list of ingredients and the concentration, maximum concentration at which it can be used. If you're using beyond that concentration, it would not be allowed to be manufactured in India or to commercialize it in India. So to answer it short, parabens are no concern. Again, I'll tell you, parabens are no concern at a concentration which is being used. Cosmetics play only on concentration. So any product which you use, it is only on concentration driven. I'll give you a simple example, and just to add to this question is, uh, suppose water. Water is used in all the formulations, right? And you say that water is the safest ingredient. No, you drink 12 liters of water in one day, you'll probably get a stroke. So the concentration plays a very important role. Bureau of Indian Standard and the Indian government is defining the concentration. So you should not be worried if you read the back of the panel and there is parabens into it. But yeah, there is a lot of NGOs which come up and say that you are using this paraben, you should not use this paraben because there is an environmental concern on parabens. Again, not at that concentration at which we are using. And hence moving ahead, probably Indian government is also looking at reducing the usage of parabens. For example, methyl paraben and ethyl paraben still can be used because that does not pose environmental concern. But isobutyl parabens or butyl parabens is something which is eliminated and it is not being used in cosmetics today.
Okay. Sir, next question is this. Are there any side effects of zinc pyridine used as anti-dandruff ingredients in Head and Shoulder shampoo?
No side effects. Zinc pyridine is a known anti-dandruff. In fact, it's a dandruff repeller. So what the zinc pyridine does is it creates a protective barrier on your scalp. The concentration at which it is being used in cosmetic formula is around 1%. Whereas if you go to a doctor, to a dermatologist, and say that you have a very high dandruff and you are trying to use Head and Shoulders or Clean and Clear and you don't, dandruff does not go, so they'll give you a therapeutic product which will have zinc pyridine at a concentration of around 3%. So zinc pyridine has no, it does not have any negative effect. In fact, it is good. In some cases also, Nizoral is used, but Nizoral is a therapeutic category.
Dr. Dilip, there are many questions. Can we take little more?
Yes, sir. I'm okay with it. No problem.
Yeah. So what is the pH of buffer, in mouthwash? And the other question is, what are the preservative added in soap? These are two questions.
So the pH of mouth, so in the oral cavity, again, it is acidic, and that's for the pH is somewhere between the range of 3.5 to 5.5. There are category of products which have high pH also. Say, for example, 5.5 and above. Now, 5.5 and above is suppose somebody has a mouth ailment. Say, for example, you have a bad odor, you have plaque or gingivitis. For them, it is recommended to use products which have high in fluoride. And you have products in high in fluoride, then to balance the fluoride, you'll have to have high pH around 5.5 to 6.5. But on an ideal, your soap, your toothpaste or your oral solutions will have pH between 3.5 to 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, sir, the other question was
what are the preservative added in soap?
Yeah, so the soap, again, let me give you some basic clarity on soap. There are two types of soap which is currently available in India. One is a soap, which is actually called a soap, and the other is a bar, which is not a soap. So a soap uses soap noodles. That means it is being manufactured by saponification or by using fatty acids, whereas the bar is a surfactant. It's a solid surfactant. The soap, which is used by saponification process, does not need to have any preservative into it because it is already alkaline and it will not have any microorganisms growth. Whereas when you're using a surfactant, in that, because it is a surfactant which will eventually lead to having more organisms, so we add preservatives, and in that case the preservatives, sodium benzoate, benzoic acid or parabens, can be helpful.
Okay. Sir, next question is, are all herbal brands of shampoo totally safe?
So
very
again,
controversial.
Very controversial, and again, I am part of Johnson Johnson team, and we don't promote herbal. But one thing which I like to share out here is, it's not about safety or efficacy. It's about consumer perseverance and also consumer understanding. Remember, when you talk about any herbal cosmetics, they don't disclose what is the ingredient which they are using. So I'll give you a simple perspective as per the Ayush guidelines. So you can call any product herbal if you add 5 milligram of a natural product. So if you see a herbal cosmetic and anybody who's using it today, just go to the back panel. It will talk about shikakai, rita, avla, and all that. It will disclose the concentration, but it will also share in a very small line. It will mention contains base. Now that base they don't disclose. Now that base is nothing but for a shampoo, a herbal shampoo, it is SLES. So they have to use SLES because there is no other base which can be served in a shampoo. But Indian Ayush requirement talks about that anything which you add above 5 milligram, you can convert your product as herbal.
So there is one more question. How to incorporate antioxidant in skin
Sir,
care?
he has addressed this one. Next two he has taken already.
Yes,
I
did see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How the TFM is calculated from soap?
So,
this has also been addressed.
TFM, yeah, I have addressed, but I think it's in purely in terms of calculation. So from a calculation perspective, there's a analytical method wherein you need to estimate. It's a titration method, very simple method to evaluate what is the TFM. Again, it is nothing but trying to titrate the fatty component. The hydroxyl molecule needs to be titrated through it to get the TFM content.
Mridula, take the next question.
What happens when a cosmetic or a cream launched show allergic manifestation after months of launch? Is it possible?
Ideally, it should not be possible, but if at all it is happening, that means the consumer might have not kept that product in a safe condition. So it is possible that you use a cream and maybe you've used a cream and you kept it open for quite some time, or there may be some additional particles which might have entered in the cream and might have been contaminated, and the preservative which was used in which was added in the cream is not able to kill the organism which was contaminated from outside. So that's possible. But in this case also, ideally it cannot be happened because it cannot be batch to batch variation. But if something like this happens, just go back and see the back panel and report this as an adverse event to the manufacturer.
Okay. Vijay sir?
Yeah. Whether these cosmetics are clinically tested?
Yes. So the cosmetics are clinically tested. Ideally, cosmetics, we do the cosmetic testing. So as I mentioned, in India, almost around 200 volunteers are required to do the testing or the overall appeal and feel. But at least around 24 subjects is required to do cosmetic testing at hospital. So government-run hospitals, say for example in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, we use GT Hospital or Chem Hospital to do the testing.
Okay.
Mridula, take the last question.
So this would be last?
Yeah. Is there any?
So there are like about 10 more pending.
I'm okay, ma'am. You can continue.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have, Sheila ma'am, are you there? Do we have time till then? Monish?
Yeah, you can take 5, 6 questions.
Okay,
can.
ma'am.
You
Okay.
can.
Okay. Sir, this question is why sodium carbonate is added to glycerin while making soaps, and what is the use of it?
So again, chemistry question, right? Why sodium carbonate is added? So sodium carbonate is basically, it's for effectiveness, and it also removes any bad odor. So when you, and purely glycerin soap is transparent soap. You have to have transparency. Otherwise, nobody will buy a glycerin soap. For example, is pear. If you pear soap is transparent soap, you can see the ad. The girl looks through the soap. It's a transparent soap, and that's why sodium or calcium carbonate is basically added.
Okay, sir, one more question.
Okay.
To reduce
So
plastic yeah, you go ahead. Mridula, you go ahead.
No, sir, you continue. This was the same question.
Okay, the question is to reduce plastic packaging. some companies are going waterless or dry product. How is water replaced in such products?
So yeah, there was so as per Indian government regulation which came out in 2019, plastic waste management. I shared it in my skeleton slide as well. So plastic waste management becomes a very essential thing, which the cosmetic manufacturers have been told by the Indian government to do it. And we tried with various dry powder solutions as well to see whether that can be an effective solution. Remember, it's not an effective solution currently, because if I give you a dry powder, suppose I'm giving you a dry powder shampoo, and I tell you that take this dry powder and mix it to 1 liter, and but for mixing you need to have purified water which should not have ions into it, because if you have water with ions, your formula will precipitate out. So there is a lot of hue and cry on that, how a formula needs to be developed. Again, when I talk about dilute it to 1 liter, what is the 1 liter scale which you are looking at? Whether you have a measuring cylinder to do 1 liter, and you cannot have 1 liter bottle or 1 liter bottle, water bottle is also not uniform. So our recommendation from the industry is that we don't allow such products. There are small manufacturers. Again, when you talk about the first slide, which I talk about, 48% of other players are there. They probably promote something because it becomes easier from them. Purified water, to have a plant of purified water for manufacturing cosmetics is a very expensive affair. So they just prepare a powdered solution, give it to you, but that's not an effective cosmetic product. So as an industry, what we have reached out to the government and said that what we will do is we will buy back the plastic. So as an industry, we buy back the plastic from the rack pickers, and we recycle that plastic and use it for the next production.
Okay. So
Would you
normally there is an expiry date written on a product. So what happens to a product when it expires, and is it advisable to use it a little bit above the expiry date?
So short answer to it, ideally no. You should not use a product which is expired. If you want to use a product which is expired and not opened, remember I'm also talking about not opened, it has not been opened and we kept it and it's been 24 months and it got expired, then in that case it's no problem. You can still go ahead and use it for almost around a year. So how we define the expiry is in use expiry. So that's the reason when the product is in use, we use it for say around a duration of 24 months. Ideally, all cosmetics have 24 months as an expiry. Beyond that, if it is used, not to be used. If it is not used, then you can use it for a year.
Okay.
Sir, how will you test baby products according to baby's skin?
Very good question. In India, it's not allowed. In India, the testing is governed by a regulatory, and there is an ethical committee in India who screens or scans the volunteers which we select. So in India, testing on baby is not allowed. But what we do is we don't do testing on babies, but we do testing on moms. So there is a categorization of moms. We do moms who are expecting moms, and the moms who have delivered baby, and the baby is around 9 months to a year old, because the mom's skin is now sensitive and the mom's skin is almost similar to a baby's skin. And for a mom who's expecting mom, we use a mom who's into a second trimester or third trimester, because there also the skin becomes sensitive. So we use to do a study on that. Remember, it's not that we just call the moms and we do a study and erythema ho gaya, then hum chhod denge. We do a clinical study before. There is an in vitro study which happens, which is nothing but a module study. We do a lot of module isolation study to confirm that when we use volunteers, there will not be any adverse event.
Okay. So the hair dyes are very popular. So the continuous use of hair dyes, does it lead to cancer? Do you have an opinion on it?
No. So hair dye is also controlled by Bureau of Indian Standard. Unfortunately, there is a lot of hair dyes available in the market which are not governed by the Bureau of Indian Standard. My recommendation is, if you're using a hair dye, go to the back of the pack. If there is a manufacturing license mentioned, there is a manufacturing license, there is an expiry date, there is a batch number, then that hair dye is good enough to be used. You will not be exposed to cancer risk. But if there is no manufacturing license into it, that means the dose of the dye is not governed by Bureau of Indian Standards. So in such cases, that product should not be used. And if you're using that product, don't use that product regularly.
Okay. Vijay sir?
Sir, there is one question. I have read about serotonin boosting lipsticks, which claims to make you happier by including trispeton rich extract in them. How effective do you think this product might be?
Again, these are therapeutic categories. These are not cosmetics. And when you talk about serotonin boosters, see what they do is they keep you smiling always. And for people who don't smile, have a very plain face, for them it is good. My recommendation is we should not try these. These are for people of, suppose you're going for a party and you're feeling very low, and you still have to accompany your husband to a party. In that case, definitely please apply this. Again, needs to be applied on a recommendation of a dermatologist only. So ideally, if you want, go to Lakme and buy any Lakme lipstick. That is enough, rather than going a serotonin lipstick.
Okay. Sir, there are one last question I'll take. There are many dandruff shampoos out there to treat dandruff. According to your opinion, which one would you recommend? Medicated or general any anti-dandruff shampoo?
So if you're suffering from dandruff, so remember, say for example, if you're using a Clean and Clear anti-dandruff shampoo, the one which Shilpa Shetty or somebody promotes, right? And you use it for one application, and you see that after around a week there is no growth of dandruff. That means it is solved. So it was a dandruff which would probably, because what is a dandruff? It is nothing but your scalp skin is shedding, right? But if your scalp skin keeps on shredding, that means there is a moisture loss which is happening. Then you need to use a therapeutic or a medicated product. So it is up to the individual. Remember, as I mentioned in the start also, cosmetic is not something which is governed by the doctor. It is governed by word of mouth. It is governed by friends. It is governed by celebrities. So today, if I'm using say today I'm using Johnson's Baby, when I go to the market, it is possible that I'll try to use something else. But how a brand is close to you, how a brand serves your purpose is something which you need to look. If you're using Clean and Clear, and if you're using Click shampoo for dandruff and it does not treat, go to a medicated one. And still, if it does not treat, that means you have a medicated condition. And for this, you need to go to a dermatologist and seek medical attention.
Okay. Okay. So almost we have come to the end of this session. And
Mrudula, 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Tripathi, there are many questions of the students that they want to enter into the career of cosmetics. How to enter in? Can you just?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think that's very good, because, and as you heard from my introduction, I'm an organic chemist. So I'm not a person from cosmetics domain, and today I am doing R&D in cosmetics. I actually make cosmetics. So if you're interested in cosmetics, and definitely you should be interested in cosmetics, because it is an FMCG company. It's a FMCG industry, fast moving consumer goods industry. So there are various fields into it. So there is an analytical field, wherein the analytical sciences is something which is very essential. People from organic can definitely enter into cosmetic from a manufacturability perspective, because everything is chemistry in cosmetics or anything. So you need to understand the cosmetic science, understand the formulation chemistry, also understand the attributes. Like for example, what is a conditioner, what is a thickener, what is an emulsifier, what is a viscosity increasing agent, and what is the chemistry of all these. So just proactively, whenever you're doing, I think people after MSCs or after will be able to start applying in such cases. If, for example, Godrej has an online interview, has an walk-in interviews. So they normally ask questions on cosmetic sciences, conditioners, emollients, emulsifiers, role of glycerin, role of SLES. So you need to do some basic study on that. And also on the analytical part, you need to understand what is the chemistry, how will you do a chromatographic analysis of, say, sodium benzoate, how will you do a chromatographic analysis of parabens, how will you do a GC analysis of alcohol. So this is what is essential, and if you are ready with all these, I think then you are fit to go to a cosmetic sector.
Thank you. With this, we come to the conclusion of question answer. Thank you, Dr. Tripathi, and you made us proud, and once again you proved that saying, Baap se, beta se bhai. So thank you. And to Dr. Sheila Valecha.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dabholkar. Oh, that was quite interesting. Long chain of questions, and you answered effortlessly, Dr. Tripathi. It was really, really good and amazing to hear authority speak on the subject. And I'm sure students and other participants have benefited from it. Dr. Tripathi, I express a heartfelt gratitude for your insights, suggestions, and inputs on the subject. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
And just lastly, it's a immense pleasure for me to come and talk about cosmetics, because it's very something which is very dear to me. And also, whenever given an opportunity like this, in front of KC crowd, I am always game to it. Thank you, sir, for
Thank you.
inviting me in spite of all the challenges. But thank you, and I really enjoyed sharing this session and also having questions.
Yeah, even we enjoyed it. It is not only KC, all over the Mumbai, all over the Maharashtra, people are listening. So it was
in future also, we expect the same response from you.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I am ready for it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Mridula?
Have a nice
Yes,
day.
ma'am. Yeah, Tripathi sir, we have to give you a formal vote of thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
That's part of our tradition. We just can't leave it. Deepika, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Deepika, over to you for the vote of thanks.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, I am audible?
Yes,
you are.
Yes.
Good afternoon, all of you. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks for the webinar on the behalf of Chemistry Department, KC College. First and foremost, I thank a special guest, Dr. Dilip Tripathi, Senior Manager R&D, Johnson & Johnson, who despite of his busy schedule, has found time to grace this webinar. Thank you, sir, for highly informative and interesting webinar on understanding cosmetics. All the participants have gained a lot from it. Looking forward for more such sessions with you, sir, in future. Today, you have cleared many misconceptions about cosmetics. Thank you, sir. My sincere thanks to our principal, Dr. Himlata Bagla, for supporting this wonderful idea of setting up a webinar for the benefit of the students and faculty. Her guidance has always encouraged us. Thank you, ma'am, for your encouragement. I also express my heartfelt thanks to our vice principals, Mr. Samajit Pardhi, Dr. Shalini Sinha, Mr. Justins for this valuable contribution. My heartfelt thanks to our head of a department, Dr. Sheila Valicha, for her continuous contribution, guidance, and encouragement in each and every step for this webinar. A big thanks to you, ma'am. I also express my gratitude to heads of various departments and the faculty for their valuable contribution and time in all our efforts. Next, my sincere thanks to my department colleagues for their support and cooperation in organizing this event and making this a successful webinar. A special thanks to Dr. Vijay Dabholkar, Dr. Samant, and Dr. Ms. Midula for organizing today's webinar. A special thanks to Mrs. Pratiksha Kadam, who has worked hard to ensure that this webinar becomes a memorable success. Thank you, ma'am, for all the technical support. I also thanks to Mr. Mohinesh and Mr. Roshan for the logistics arrangement needed for this webinar. Last but not the least, I thank all the people for their active participation and cooperation in making this webinar a resounding success. Once again, I thank you all for your attention and presence. Stay home and stay safe. Thank you.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you,
Thank
Deepika.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
Dilip, you
Dilip,
can
sir.
leave now.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. So
Stay
we'll be
safe,
in touch.
stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye.
Requesting all the participants to please leave the meeting after filling the feedback form, and requesting all the chemistry members also to fill the feedback form. It becomes easy for us to generate certificates for you all. And we will be keeping this open for another 5-10 minutes only. And once you
Thank
fill
you,
the form,
Mithila.
yeah. Haan, Charu.
I did.
Thank you, Dabolkar sir,
Oh,
Chaudhary
what
madam,
what is there
Farooq
to thank
sir,
me?
Rajesh
Part
sir,
of
you